Thank you guys for joining us. We know it's late and it's hot. Thank you also joining from home. I'm very happy to be here to talk about a passion kind of a topic of mine, data or data. Data or data, I don't know, maybe we're going to have to talk about that. How do we say it? But the topic is going to be data, and we have like a collection of people that is basically what they do day in and day out. Myself, I'm Rotem, I'm ecosystem engagement lead in Subsquid. And yeah, I'm happy to moderate and listen to these really smart people talk. So let's get to it because we don't have a lot of time. Let's start with like a short introduction, so people will know who you are, and also give kind of like talk about what are the current challenges and that you see right now in the ecosystem.
Hi everyone, my name is Pavla. I'm the data platform lead in Parity. And regarding the status quo, I would say that a little less than a year ago, Parity has assembled a dedicated data team of data analysts and data engineers who are focused on executing Parity's data strategy. And we are focused around several objectives that we want to achieve, like building a self-serve data platform that stores all of the historical chain and open source data, providing accessible and understandable data insights, knowledge sharing around metrics computation, and lastly, but very importantly, strengthening the relationships within our data ecosystem in Polkadot, because there are a lot of builders, a lot of people that are dedicated into delivering similar things, and we want to kind of exchange around best practices and experiences within the Polkadot ecosystem. In terms of challenges, I would say it's similar to any large-scale analytics project. So the efforts that needs to be invested, it's very high. But unlike traditional industries and systems where you have literal recipes for success, because data warehousing has been evolved through decades. Here in blockchain data engineering and analytics, you really cannot copy-paste because simply there are not many best practices available. So I would say we had probably similar pain points like a lot of other data builders in the ecosystem, like building chain agnostic data model, deriving valuable insights from the chain data, and essentially making the data ingest process scalable and efficient. And what we aim to do is really share that knowledge. So we have participated in the Polkadot forum to share our experiences and mainly help out other ecosystem teams and individuals that want to engage with Polkadot data. I would say that's the status quo and status of the challenges that they faced.
Hey, I'm James from Subquery. So we're a data indexer on Polkadot, and the process of an indexer is a tool that's used to collect and organize data from any parachain into a more structured format that you might use in an app, or if you're analyzing that data as part of a data science team. What we've found, obviously understand that data is always a challenge, and especially on blockchain data, because the way that it's stored is optimized for performance and not optimized for legibility. But one of the other issues that we're facing, I think, in Polkadot, the advantage of Polkadot is obviously the number of parachains it can support. And there's something like 60 or 70 parachains right now across Polkadot and Kusama. But each of those parachains is a separate location for that data. And if you want to have a holistic view of the ecosystem as a whole, it's very difficult to combine all these different data streams and all these different parachains and normalize that data into a format that is kind of easily compared across. I think a lot of teams are working hard on figuring out how to, for example, there are like 5 different NFT standards across Polkadot. There's ERC 721s, there's remarks, there's uniques, and I think there's a new Polkadot PSP as well for NFTs as well. So just normalizing that across 70 different parachains is a pain in the ass. And so that's something we've found that's hard in Polkadot, and we're doing a lot of work at Subquery around multi-chain indexing to help with that.
Hi everyone, I'm Tommi. I'm leading growth for Magata Finance, and today I also represent Polkalytics, which is basically a brand I'm building. I'm very curious about things that are happening on chain. And so I'm building tools that answer those questions. Built a lot of stuff for myself, but I see that there's also infrastructure coming up in the ecosystem that I can use. What's the state of data in the ecosystem? So think about the chains that you recently used. Do you know what's going on today on that chain? I mean, you can go visit a block explorer and then look at individual blocks or extrinsics or whatever and try to create the picture, but you don't really know what's going on. At Mangata Finance, we're building a DEX. And so in a DEX, you would be interested in who's buying, who's selling, what's actually happening with the assets. But as builders, we are focused on building technology and not looking too much at the data. So this is sort of every team that is building a chain doesn't really have the time too much to focus on what is actually happening on the chain like we would want to. And so we have some basic tools, some basic infrastructure, but I think we could go much further in how much knowledge we're generating out of the data that we have today.
Okay, I'm Dimitry. I'm co-founder of Subsquid. We provide data and indexing solution for the Polkadot ecosystem and beyond for AVM. So I believe one of the overlooked challenges for projects building on Polkadot is how hard it is to get their data represented. So we at Subsquid already run more than 40 archives for parachains and substrate-based chains, which makes it incredibly fast to index, analyze, and build applications in these chains without relying too much on the RPC providers. And for test nets and small projects building a chain, that is usually a huge span. So our goal is to fix this. So basically, launching a parachain or small chain anywhere else would be as easy as publishing an application to the App Store or like to a Google Store, and the data accessibility, so basically the historical data, will be handled by Subsquid. So currently we run this as a public service, and in the future we plan to build like a whole network around this.
Okay, thanks. So let's talk about, like we spent some time in the problem space. The problems are big, there are a lot of them. Dima, you spoke a little bit about like what we're doing to solve these problems and look into how to make data more accessible. I would love to hear from all of you, what can we do to improve the access to data in our ecosystem and make it easier for projects to build?
I think in order to do that, first it's important to recognize different types of data user and data builder personas that we have, both in the ecosystem and outside, because clearly they have different needs and different expectations and different ways of engaging with the data. So in order to serve them properly, we need to be able to cater both the educational content and also the way the data is served to them in a different manner. So you will have probably your super users that will need more analytic granular raw data. Then you will have probably a large middle range of basic to intermediate data users with let's say, medium level of data literacy, who will most probably need some sort of slightly transformed, modeled, aggregated data for their particular need. And then at the end, you will have people who just need like quick insights, pre-computed metrics, and basically quick information about what's going on in the ecosystem. So I think we have been working on all of these fronts, maybe more focused on the first and the last category, and need to expand on the middle one. And in terms of improving accessibility, I would say maybe just highlight one important a recent teaser that we have in the ecosystem, together with a team called Colorful Notion. You probably know them as Polkalytics. We have achieved to get Polkadot and Kusama ecosystem data for over 70 chains publicly listed on BigQuery. So I think that lowers that initial barrier of interacting and understanding the data, because any user with even a basic literacy can follow certain examples provided in the repo and start consuming the information around Polkadot ecosystem.
It's an interface problem. It's like
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
Yeah.
I think the secret to finding out anything you want to know about data is to ask Pavla. So reach out to her and Karim as well. They're very friendly, and they can give you any answers that you want. I think you were up late last night, still giving data to some of the teams here doing presentations. So they're easy. But anyway, jokes aside, maybe first understand what kind of data you want. So there are massive archives in BigQuery that have kind of high-level data sets from across the ecosystem. There's more particular data sets that you might use Subsquid for that have archives for this if you want to do some more bespoke analysis across the chain. But if you want to do something that's really, really like specific on a smart contract or on a certain application, you might use something like subquery. So it's about understanding what type of data you need and what you need it for and what the output you want it in, and then going out to these different tools. And I guess that's a good segue to talk about how do you discover these different tools.
Oh yeah, sure. I've been proposing a treasure. So I've been building. I wanted to do my taxes, and I've been playing around with a lot of parachains. And so if you play around with a lot of parachains, you do a lot of transactions. So how do I file my taxes? And there were no tools that could allow me to do this. And so I started writing my own tool to basically grab the data together. This is the thing that I originally called Polkalytics. And so by now it's able to basically look at Polkadot, look at Kusama, maybe StateMine statement, Asset Hub now. But it wasn't able to look at all the other chains. And so I was thinking, okay, so maybe I should use Subsquid, but maybe I should use something different. I don't really have the knowledge of what is the best tool available for me. And so I was thinking, okay, I'm like taking 2 days or a weekend or maybe 2 weeks, let's see how long it goes, and research all of this. And I was thinking, okay, but I actually already spent 1.5 years or almost 2 years looking at data in Polkadot. Maybe I should know what the proper tool is. So if I do the research for myself, maybe this would be useful for everyone else. And so I said, okay, let's make a project out of this. I proposed it to the Polkadot Treasury, and I got a grant. So what I'm building right now with the grant of the Polkadot Treasury is a website that gathers all the tools that are available, all the APIs, all the data sets, all the schemas, all the definitions, all the standards, all the teams that are working on it, and whatever I come across, and put it on a single website. It's a GitHub repository that gets built into a website. And it should be coming out in a month or so. And be making available to you if you want to work with data to see on a single website all the resources that are available to you in Polkadot to get started or to know who to contact and get more information.
Yeah, really great answers. So the only thing that I can add is, yeah, exactly. The value comes not only from the data itself, but also from the tools that we have at our disposal. And there are tools that are universal, like BigQuery, Parquet files, DuckDB. And there is a glue that is specific to the substrate data, because this is something that we have to basically develop ourselves. So in order to address a specific problem or like specific data request, we the key challenge is basically figuring out the best combinations of the available tools and the available data sets. So we, for example, at Subsquid try to deliver best tooling related to decoding scale data, and also different tooling related to transforming one data from one format to another. So for example, if you want to analyze data with DuckDB, you can use Parquet files. Or if you want to do like really big data, you can go to BigQuery, or you can just like go into Postgres and directly analyze data from there. So at the end of the day, depending on the use case, it's more about like figuring out what data is in there and what is like the best tool to put this together and transform it and visualize the way that you like.
Great, that's very interesting. Let's talk a little bit about usability and UX. I think that's really great to have like a platform like this that it helps with discoverability. But how do we bridge the gap also in usability and like how easy it is to use these tools and how like the user experience is, especially if it's like people that are not like hardcore developers. How do we make things more accessible to them? What is like the kind of work that still needs to be done?
This space has often been kind of troubled with misconceptions around data. And I think what we're focused on is serving some just neutral hard facts, and that is what we're trying to achieve. I think probably in terms of increasing understanding and access and the usability of data, we have, apart from reporting on standard chain activity and ecosystem metrics like daily active users or number of signed extrinsics, transfers, volumes, etc. I think we have here a real opportunity to showcase through data some of the Polkadot's unique differences to other ecosystems. And this is something that we need to figure out jointly how to report. For example, focus on computational power and storage usage, interoperability, governance metrics, etc. So, and taking into account what we heard today on the keynote speech, there's a lot of things to cover and a lot of things to adapt in terms of our focus and in terms of adapting our data models to fit into this like really bold vision of Polkadot. And maybe just one short message around strategy. Since we're communicating with a lot of data builders in the ecosystem, and we had a very successful collaborations with these guys on the stage and also some teams like Subwallet and Apexi. What we are currently considering and have put up sort of shared with our sub data community is the idea of kind of coordinating all of these different and similar data initiatives under one umbrella. What basically means that either through a form of a bounty or some kind of more structured collaborative strategy, we want to invite teams to both kind of curate our joint data initiative called Polkadot Data Alliance and also contribute via these child bounties to many different layers that we're trying to tackle. Infrastructure, maintenance, metrics, insights, visualizations, and also very important integrations of Polkadot data to the known multi-chain analytics platform. So those would be some kind of outlooks that we're trying to achieve.
I just want to flip that question back on itself, and we've talked about the challenges of UX with data, but we kind of sometimes forget the importance of data for UX. If we look at, and I say this so many times, but if we look at the successful applications in Web 2, they are kind of uniquely defined as companies that are able to manage vast troves of data efficiently and effectively. And so we have to, if we want to build these applications that kind of help bridge this divide between Web 2 and Web 3, we have to improve the tooling that we have to be able to manage this data and then provide that to these application levels. And so a lot of the stuff that, whether it's just researching behind the scenes how it works on the chain, or building tools like Subsquid and Subquery to be able to expose that data to applications, being able to efficiently manage and own data and process data, especially in a blockchain data, in a fast way, because data on a blockchain is stored in the most horrendous way for querying. It's like designed to be the most horrible way to query it. And so it's important that we also think about the other side of that. And that's kind of, I guess, the source of our two companies, right? Is all about managing data.
So it's
for
also the
application
UX for
sites.
the end user that it ends up using these apps. Yeah, for
That's
sure.
what we're here for.
Yeah, 100%.
I think I'm going to say that sort of the availability of the data is, there is a lot of data available. Like if discovering it is a little bit hard, but if you spend some time and effort, you can get there. And there
It took 2 years.
yeah, yeah, it's true. But so there is already a lot of stuff available to you. So if you have any question about what is happening on the blockchain, I would encourage you to just try to look it up or look into any of the available providers into what kinds of data they are already offering to you. Because maybe the data you're looking for is already there. And if you look for it and you can't find it, then you can go into a conversation. So for example, we have a Telegram group going on. It's sort of 40, 50 people, sort of like this.
60.
60? Okay, we're growing. So, these are basically like the data folks of the ecosystem that are throwing in questions or knowing niche things. And so you can get access to people who might know the answer to your question. So if there is a question you have about your parachain or any parachain, like look into Subscan, Subsquid, or any of the other tools and just try to see if the data is maybe already there. And if not, then you can get in contact.
Yeah, I think I just want to mention a great job done by .insights, the data team at Subwallet. And in general, the importance of presenting the data to a greater audience, because one thing is having this data somewhere in BigQuery or like something. The completely different story is to post a compelling story into Twitter or to any other media resource and tell what exactly is going on, not just like some numbers. And most of the time, I think this is like about having the critical mass of people who are like really care about this and have enough incentives to like dig into this data, present this data, like and tell this story. I guess we're like as an ecosystem have like a very good setup because like we have Treasury, we have Web3 Foundation grants, and for example, completely open source and free to use Calamar Explorer was funded from the Web3 Foundation grant, and it is right now a viable alternative for Subscan, for example, and any small parachain or like a small chain can very easily get support of the Explorer without like going into lengths and spending a considerable amount of their funds on Explorer support. So I think that, yeah, at the end of the day, it's like the diversity and like having people who can build visualization, who can like work on the data, and yeah, basically growing the data community in this space.
Yeah, very interesting. We have a few minutes left, and I want to use this time to talk about metrics and KPIs. And basically, yeah, like the future of data on Polkadot. What kind of metrics do you think should like parachains, applications, projects building on Polkadot or the wider ecosystem really focus on? How do we measure ourselves?
I'll skip this one because I think I covered it in the previous one.
It's tricky, right? Like, because each parachain needs to ask what is a measure of their success. Like, what metrics are they looking for? And the easy one is TVL, right? Everyone talks about TVL. You might talk about active wallets, and these are all very easy to analyze and index. It's hard to define engagement. So I think the first thing when you ask this question is like, what does a good engaged user in your parachain do, and how do you then keep an eye on what they're doing and measure that they are doing that and upselling that. You also in Polkadot, I think one thing that's coming through now is a bit more measurement on the XCM interactions between chains. As an ecosystem as a whole, I think Polkadot, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but what I've heard is that they're looking at the number of XCM transactions as a good indication of the uptake of some of the technologies that they're adding support for. And all these are pieces that we're looking at. I
would say it's users, it's customers. because when Bitcoin launched and Satoshi Nakamoto wrote this email to the user group, he basically said, hey, try out this tool. So the first thing that made Bitcoin a thing is that people actually tried it out. And if we look at user metrics, we can see how are people using a chain, when are they dropping off, when do they keep using the chain. So for me, it's users.
Yeah, I don't really have anything to add. I totally agree. I think users is like the only most important metric. Nothing else is basically a derived thing that depends on the number of active users, not even wallets, but like active humans interacting, and everything else just stems from their behavior and like what they actually interested in and like what they do. So yeah, I totally agree.
Okay, but do you think like we're doing like a good job in kind of really looking at these metrics and working together? Like I think like each parachain or each projects have like different goals. So how do we like meet together? I know that we have this group and stuff, but like how do we create like, do we need a standard, or like do we need like one metric that we're all looking at, or is it like to each project to its own?
But yeah, each parachain has their own goals, right? It's like as an ecosystem, we can look at some things, but we have to kind of optimize for each parachain's goal. Yeah, are we doing well? I think one thing that we could be doing better, and this is part of what this group that we're talking about, this metrics data kind of group, is once one parachain learns how to create these tools to then analyze these metrics that are so important for them, making it more easily available for other parachains that don't have that internal resource around this. I feel like there's still a little bit too much this ecosystem of parachains doing all the hard work, but not sharing that work across the
resources
ecosystem.
is a big problem, right? Not each parachain or project has the same resources to invest into.
And each parachain, like the number of times the parachain has redone the wheel, rebuilt the wheel, is insane in this ecosystem. And so, by having one kind of data group here, we're hopefully going to reduce that duplication of effort in the space.
Yeah, I would maybe also mention, besides usual number of users, etc., developer activity. We have some unwritten standards now in the blockchain space that I think can be vastly improved, because now we have the comparison of different ecosystems based on just rudimental metrics like number of commits, etc., which shows definitely some indications, engagement, and whether there's some commitment and vibrancy behind the ecosystem. But I think jointly we can derive much more, I would say, qualitative metrics around developer activity that can show really the quality of those contributions by
Journey, the developer experience, like where do they drop off, like what
exactly, yeah.
You could ask, how can we measure the success of Web 2? Like, what metric should we use to measure the success of Web 2? And I guess everyone would come up with a different answer. It's sort of the thing we're building is the infrastructure of Web 3. So if I'm going to use an app in the future, I don't want to know what, if I use an app today, I don't want to know what database is below it, or like what libraries is it built on top of. I just want to use my app. So for a heterogeneous system, we cannot really give a homogeneous answer. It's more like where do we see adoption in the things we're using, and are we going to use apps that actually use Web3 as the underlying technology? So it's going to be hard to measure. We are working with quantitative things, but in the end, it's sort of the quality that we're looking for.
Yeah, adding on top of that, when like speaking about users, sometimes people bring in, okay, how do we onboard Web 2 and like millions of normies? But I think sometimes it is even more important to compare the ecosystem and our share across the Web3 users, because this is definitely right now still at a very early stage, and to indicate the health of Polkadot as an ecosystem, I think it's important to look at what is the percentage of Web3 natives that come into the Polkadot ecosystem and actually use parachains? Because they are definitely like early adopters, and we should aim for them.
Okay, that's a very great ending note. Thank you guys so much for joining. It was really interesting, and see you next time.
Thank you.